Hi there, it's me, Jordan Van Haslo. Welcome to Jordan Van Haslo and Friends live on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. Let's get on with the show. Welcome to Showtime with Jordan Van Haslo and Friends right here on Hot 702.5 FM Las Vegas. So glad that you all are joining us. And I'm so glad to introduce you to, I guess now she's an old friend. It's so funny how quickly time passes. I think we've probably known each other for almost maybe a little under a decade now. She works in the industry as most of my friends do. And I would say she is the production finance guru. And so I'm so glad we haven't spoken. I don't think we've actually had a chance to catch up since before the pandemic. So I'm so excited to see what's been going on in her world and learning a little bit more. And we are all going to learn a little bit more just kind of about her journey through the business. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to my very, very wonderful dear buddy, Angelina Feliciano. Hi, Angelina.
Hi, it's good to see you.
It's
Thanks
good
for
to
having
see
me
you.
on.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. I really don't know. Have we spoken since the pandemic? I feel like we
No,
haven't.
there's like such a big like social circle change because it brought everybody else to like different areas of their life, their different priorities and stuff. So there's been a
Yeah,
lot of disconnection, but it's good to reconnect and just catch up.
totally. Well, it's true. You like you said, because like there was probably a good 2 year period where like nobody
Hmm.
saw anybody. And then
Right.
in that time, people moved to different parts of the country. So then once you like
Yeah.
reemerge from the world, it's like, where do I live and who still lives here and what are they doing and all of that. So
Yeah,
how
the
did you
remote work.
exactly. So how wait, so let's go back to pandemic and then we can go back
Hmm.
even further, but I just want to just catch up with you. So you spent pandemic in Los Angeles or did you end up
I,
going back to New York for a period of time?
I was mainly in Los Angeles and just still working. I was working at Paramount Pictures. So that was an interesting transition working at the studio. And then, hey, we're all going to get, laptops and we're going to just try this remote work tomorrow, which is a Friday. And then we don't see each other for over 2 years. So it was interesting working, with this great department. So many projects in play, and
Mhm.
then we're all like in our own homes and adjusting to electronical type of work, that digital workflow, and just you miss everybody because there's a different kind of rapport you have in the office, and then there's some kind of convenience working at home, and then like the tech work and difficulties that you might come through, and yeah, so
Yeah, you
it was
can't
an
just call
adjustment.
IT in the same way and wait for someone from
No,
come down from
I
IT
felt
to
for
help
them.
you.
Yeah, I felt for them. So every time I would ask them for some kind of like help, I was like, take your time. Because I'm sure like they have like a backlog of needing help, but helping all the staff and freelancers. Yeah,
Yeah. What
that
were
was
you
great.
doing at Paramount? Were you on the film side or the TV side? What projects were
I
you
was on
working
the film side. So I was working in their production finance department and features, and I was supporting their SVP of production finance. So she's the way that I understood the department and the workflow, because it was completely new for me to work in finance. I was mostly on the production side and I didn't really deal with the numbers. But this structure, I recognized my boss being like, she's the big accountant. And then I'm her first assistant, you could say. And then every film that she has assigned to her, we're supporting those accountants all around the world, or domestically. So it's like she's handling, the big picture, and then I'm helping delegate anything that that could support the production accountants around the world. So it was really fascinating, very challenging, of course, but I got to be a part of a lot of projects that I'm very grateful for, and a really good group of people.
Yeah, like so like what was on the slate at the time?
At the time, especially when the pandemic was happening, Mission Impossible 7 and 8,
Oh
which was
wow.
a doozy. Um, we were also greenlighting Dungeons and Dragons and Transformers, I think 7, if I remember correctly. So it's like these
All
big,
these big huge tent poles.
major action. Yeah. And it's just, so I just recognized like her slate of films. I was like, these are major, like just the components of how how many production accountants you're interacting with around the world. You have somebody, in the UK, and then you have like a smaller team going to Peru because there's a short a shoot there for a couple of scenes. So you're all over the place, and there's a method. You're not completely chaotic about it, but it just helped to feel like, wow, I'm really a part of this big team, and we're all creating this product together. And then
Yeah.
the seeing the final thing, and you see all the credits, and like you recognize people, and so it's like a lot of good memories, a challenge, but a lot of good stuff too.
Yeah. Well, so let's go back. How did you get into the industry? I know you're from the boogie down.
Hmm.
Uh, so did you always want to work in entertainment, or did you kind of fall into entertainment? How did that happen?
I mean, I wanted to get out of the Bronx, but it's like such a sweet spot for me, of course, because it's home, nothing's like home. But growing up, I had like this dream perspective about LA and about film and TV. So I would watch like First Wives Club and just go through like the lines because I wanted to be an actress, and I loved the writing and the humor, and so I wanted all like that creative aspect of the performance and the writing and possibly directing. So as a kid, I'll just play along with the films, and then growing up as as a teenager and in my 20s, I really pursued writing. But in college, I thought I would be a web designer because everybody had a MySpace, everybody was working on HTML coding and stuff, and you had a lot of fun, and it was a
And that's also
creative
what everyone
outlet.
told you, right? Like you need to go in
Yeah,
IT. That's where the money is. Go into IT. Go into
exactly.
technology. Go into computers.
Yeah, it was such a great like career objective. So I thought that was gonna be something I was gonna pursue in college, but then I was just really bad in like my grades. And I went to this math advisor because I'm like, I'm edging on like academic probation. I'm just not really thriving. So I go to this math professor to get some advisement, and he's like, well, if you're already doing web designing, and as a hobby, that's something you could probably get a job in, off the bat. So why don't you switch majors to something you're more interested or passionate about? And then I was like, okay, I'll take that because I did not want to do pre-calculus, calculus one, two, three. I'm not going for it. So I switched to
Wait, so were
journalism.
you a math major?
I was in web designing, but there's so much math involved because
Oh.
of the language, the like
Oh,
HTML,
all the coding, all of the coding.
PHP, all the coding. And so it was so extensive because like the formulas and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to really do well here, which is fine. That was just me at the time. But that just having that, I guess, permission or just flexibility of like, why don't you change your major? Because sometimes you're having that trajectory and it's okay to
Hmm.
pivot. So
Yeah.
I
And I
switched
think it's
to
really
math.
cool. I think it's really cool
Hmm.
that you had an advisor who gave you that counseling, right? Because I know a lot of
Hmm.
times you can, talk to folks, older folks, especially when you're young and you're kind of trying to figure it out and you don't have the world perspective. And they're like,
Hmm.
well, this is the path, so do it. What's wrong with you? So the fact that he like gave you really practical advice, like you've
Right.
been web designing, you can find your own clients doing it. So now
Hmm. Yeah.
what do you want? Like just that's just this is this wonderful practical advice.
Yes, it really is. And I really am very grateful for him because it really opened up my world of just I have this passion for TV and film. I love writing, and just like to explore that. So I switched
So
my major, and it was like smooth sailing ever since. So,
so what made you
mm-hmm.
choose like journalism versus say like television? I mean, I don't know where you went to
Mm-hmm.
school, but like, versus
Yes.
screenwriting or versus like, television production or whatnot. What made you pursue journalism?
Uh, Mainly because like the course curriculum allowed me to take like a lot of the TV and film stuff. So it was multimedia journalism and broadcast. Like that was the official
Got it.
major. So I took any class that would help me learn like about documentary, filmmaking or audiovisual stuff. So at least that I could have that experience, and then working like we had an internship with BronxNet, so you got to work on the cameras and do all that digital work. So um it was a lot of
Bronx
fun.
Net.
Yeah. I'm like,
I
hey,
did
they
an
were helping
interview
us
on
out.
BronxNet years and years and years ago. I remember I still So a friend of mine who I did it with actually sent me a video from it. It's so funny because it was like recorded on VHS and like the quality is so
Yeah.
crappy. This is like maybe 2000, 2001.
Right. Yeah, we've certainly advanced in that way. Yeah.
But I'm
It was a
sorry,
good time.
continue. Yeah.
But
So
yeah, so like that internship was fun, but it was like being on set and helping to write, produce some interviews for like the Bronx Journal that they had there. But after college, I had to really go out there and see what kind of gigs I can get. And I was grateful to land at like MTV and VH1, being a production assistant. And then soon after that, I was a coordinator. So I got to work on some fun shows like, I love the 2000s and Behind the Music. Yeah, it was like good memories. And being on set, you just see all like the talent that you typically watch on TV that you're really, excited to see.
And especially
But
those
yeah.
types of shows because like I love the 2000s, etc. You have like
Hmm.
this variety of just different people. It's not like you're just dealing with one singular
Hmm.
cast member. It's like every
Right.
time they're filming, it's like, oh my God, there's that guy from that show. Oh my God, that's that guy from that program. At the
Yeah.
time, who was the most exciting person that you met? Like, at that time where you were like, oh my
Oh.
God, so and so's on
Oh.
set.
Um, I at a distance, I got to see LL Cool J. I did get to meet Pharrell.
Really?
I got to
And he
meet
looks exactly the
L.A.
same,
Reid.
right?
Yes, exactly the same. He got us like all hot chocolate because it was a pretty chilly day. But yeah, like Pharrell, and because we were working on episodes for like Ludacris and 50 Cent. So it was fun, like just to be in the room when, they're having all these different interviews and just going back and, talking about the evolution of the hip hop industry and how these artists made such a big impact. So, and you're just
Yeah.
like on set getting, crafty in order and lunch deals and, you know, and so it
How
was a great exposure,
Yeah, how funny is it? Like now we're at like the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Isn't that wild?
right? Yes, it's exciting, but it's really cool just to look back and like, I mean, hip hop now is just very, very different, but I guess that just goes to its longevity and how adaptable the music um way of just being, the artist and
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Well, what I think it is it's like evolved. It's kind of like, when you take like a specific brand of like clothing, like a
Hmm.
couture brand, and then all of a sudden they move into makeup and then they move into like
Hmm.
hip hop has become like a lifestyle, right? It's not
Yes.
just a musical genre anymore.
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah.
Cool. So that sounds like a really awesome experience. So you're working at so this is like MTV VH1. So
Hmm.
you're working
Yeah.
there as a
Living with
production
family.
associate. So what was kind of the next step in your journey?
I thought about going to LA. I had made like a few trips, trying to meet people that you typically are on email with and finally meet them in person. So it was a big leap, and I kept pushing those plans, but I had a lot of encouragement just by people that I worked with, and my family, my friends were lovely about it. So I booked like a one-way ticket. I found this girl from Chicago who's already living in LA doing, working in the industry. She ended up being my roommate. She was very cool. So it was bizarre just booking that one way. And then suddenly I'm signing a lease and suddenly I have a job interview and then I end up working and it happened pretty quickly, which I'm very grateful for because that's not always the case. But
Hmm.
it's just, I guess it just goes to show just being, that determination and just really just finding a way. And so
Yeah.
yeah, I landed here and that's now it's like what, about 9 years later? It
Wow.
all goes by
Wow.
quickly.
It goes by so quickly. So when you went out and you're like, okay, I want to go
Mhm.
out and I want to work, for the studios. I want to work in Hollywood.
Mhm.
At this point, having been like a production coordinator, having been a production associate, did you
Mhm.
have like a specific like, okay, now having worked for Viacom for a while now, understanding kind of the industry and all the different possibilities and wherever how everything fits together, did you have like a specific goal, like, okay, I'm going to go out to Los Angeles and
Mhm.
I'm going to move into development, or did you have like a specific
Yes.
goal in mind?
I because most of the work that I did back in New York was production management, just like the logistics, coordinating. I loved that and I felt like I thrived so much in that area. So when I came to LA, I just figured, oh, I'll get like an office job, like in terms of entertainment,
Right.
working in, the production aspect of that. And um, so I was just looking for anything. I was like production coordinator. I did not imagine that I would elevate to a production manager as quickly as I did, but that opportunity presented itself because of my experience already managing um, certain shoots and stuff like that. So I ended up working on a few Fox shows and worked in Digital Twigs, which is also like a stop motion animation. And then eventually I was so much in like handling the accounting stuff and payroll, and I thought that was kind of fun for me because not a lot of people enjoy it, but people love getting
and
paid,
and you were flunking, and you almost flunked out of math on top.
right? But I have Excel and I'm really good at it now. I know all these formulas, but it was just something that I was really curious about. And then I saw this, production finance coordinator role at Paramount Pictures, and I applied. And it was a weird time in my life where I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna find new work. And
Hmm.
this call just came, and I was like on a red eye flight back to LA because I was visiting family, went straight to this interview. And that day they called me and said, you'd be great for this. Would you like to join? And so I was like, oh, yeah.
That's
That's
amazing.
how I
So,
ended up in finance.
so
Yeah.
that's like around the time of study group. Remember study
Yes.
group?
Yes.
so,
Study group. Oh my
so,
gosh. Good times.
so, so for those of you out there listening, so I know Angelina through our producer Jose. They worked together at Fox ADHD, and we all became fast friends. And around that same time, right before you started, so Angelina began working at Paramount, we were all either transitioning from one role to another or working from home. And so Angelina, Jose, Valerie Sumi, who's been on the show before. We created something called study group, and so like once or twice a week, we would all just come together and work together for the work day, and we'd go from each other's house. So like one day they'd be at my place, another day we'd be at Angelina's, another day we'd be at Jose's, another day we'd be at Valerie's. Such a fun time.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And it also helped each other, like, we were keeping each other accountable,
Yeah.
trying to develop good habits and,
Mm-hmm.
helping each other in that way. We will like review each other's work. Like if I was writing something, just kind of get feedback. So it was a really good, beneficial time for each of us. And I think it just nourished our friendship and also our creative, objectives and roles and stuff. Yeah, it was really
Yeah,
good.
100%. So speaking of creative, so you've
Hmm.
moved into due to production accounting. Do you can continue doing any creative endeavors outside of your work?
Well, right now, I am trying to work on writing about stories that really help me with like sharing empathetic stories so that other people could connect to it. Because
Mm,
I've just had a lot of interesting experiences and my faith as well, living in Los Angeles, coming from New York. There's a lot of things that could discourage people working in this industry, and we always hear about that. And I would love to share stories about my experience and the challenges that I've gotten through. So I've been trying to develop my blog in that way, and then also sharing, in faith and encouraging people in that aspect. So yeah, so it's like here and there the day-to-day work just does like drain you because I'm like in numbers all the time. But it's like that I know that's something that's very that enriches my life where I get to write and share stories and do that. So I'm working on it.
Yay. How often do you post on your blog?
I've been posting for a couple of years now, but right now it's kind of had like a little bit of a dry spell, but it'll be more things to come. Yeah, next month.
Yay. So talk to me about it. So interesting because like I read the trades all the time, and
Hmm.
and you see just how the industry is in this really weird shift, right? Like,
Hmm.
everyone's been laying off for the last couple of years. you know, people are like, they don't know what, streaming hasn't been as successful as everyone thought it would be because everybody jumped into streaming, and now it's almost like they're talking about going back to the cable model of everybody.
Hmm.
you
Yep.
know and then we have like, AI and the preponderance of AI. And so I think a lot of these roles that people are like laying off are going to be like replaced, or like either not going to be replaced because, artificial intelligence is going to be kind of what performs a lot of those functions. And I think that kind of like the new hot, kind of like back when you're in college, it's like go into computers, go into
Yeah.
to coding. I think the new hot job is going to be like AI prompting. But tell
Yes.
me what you're seeing just from your, because like, when you read a lot about it, we read about it from the creative aspect, like, oh my God, the writers need to be protected. Oh my God, they want to like, resurrect Marilyn Monroe and have, an AI generated version of her star in movies. from
Hmm.
your perspective on like the back on the finance and accounting side, are you seeing AI come in and be used in a specific way? And do you think that that'll be, expanded?
I I haven't seen it affect so much in like the finance aspect. Like even if I think about like some of the budgets that we're working on, I haven't seen the impact there, but I could imagine um, how we're placing personnel, like the effect there, because you want the writers and you want them to have a wage that they're comfortable working in, unions and so on, and a fair wage. So I can imagine that there's budgetarily effects there, but I haven't seen it directly yet. But I'm
Yeah.
sure it's coming. Yeah. And so then you got to figure out like how are we gonna um, keep up with that demand, just like pay wages, being fair, getting the work done, and then how much is AI going to affect the writing or development, and then how can we keep that out, or just like some kind of boundaries. But I
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen it exactly directly, but I always like think about it and just being curious of what's to come because it's not something that I anticipated, but it's
No.
like all in our face and it's everywhere. And I see it like I open an app and all of a sudden it has AI features. And so I'm just like, wait, when did you put
When
this
did that
in?
happen, right? Just like out of
And then
nowhere.
like how is that, and, like how is that affecting me? And what kind of terms and conditions am I agreeing to by using this feature? Like so a lot of weird stuff going on, but it'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
Yeah. What was your experience during the strikes?
During the strikes, oddly enough, I was working, well, I have been working at Tennis Channel for a while. So I ended up pivoting into sports broadcasting. So the finance side in that, it hadn't been directly impacted, but I can see, just a lot of, I would see a lot of posts from other friends within the industry and how they were really just taking the stand just to ask for just basic respect and good work conditions and fair wages. I have a good friend. He was also a part of the writer's strike or SAG after a strike many years ago. So there's just a lot of lineage in that way of just seeing how people really go out and pick it and just to support each other because it's like if one of us is being targeted like in some way of like the vulnerable person and if you're able to stand alongside them for them to be advocated for like that's super important, you make that voice louder. And those are the kind of stories that I would love to continue to share, whether it's from my own life or the life of others. So like just how there are all these strikes going on, and as hard as I can imagine it being on a personal level, and like the wrestling between the studios wanting their things, and the unions wanting their own stuff. So, but that coming together is so important, and I'm very
Yeah.
glad like things started panning out a lot better. And then I think there might be other, parts of the industry that would want to really advocate for better, pay or whatever kind of benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, go for it. Like, you need to advocate for yourself. And if you stay quiet, you're never really going to get, what's the worst you can say? Get an answer. No, but
There's
at least you
no.
speak
Mhm.
up. At least you ask, and at least you try to pursue it. So but I'm
Yeah.
very glad for them. Yeah.
I feel like we're going through kind of like a world shift,
Mm-hmm.
like, and it
Mm-hmm.
started with like Me Too and then Black
Right.
Lives Matter. And we see just,
Mm-hmm.
like just unions in general. Like you see like all of these various Starbucks stores unionizing
Right.
and start like I feel like we are going through some kind of a shift to where like the status quo of the 80s, 90s,
Mm-hmm.
2000s and the way that power was structured and what was acceptable or not acceptable is really
Mm-hmm.
shifting in like a very big way. I feel like this next, like this Generation Z is like,
Mm-hmm.
oh hell no. Like,
Yes. Yes, exactly. I really give props to Gen Z because the like older generations, like obviously they'll like kind of, pick on the younger generation here and there. Like there's some like fun jokes, right? But with Gen Z, I'm like, don't give them a hard time. I think they're recognizing a lot of things that are problematic. They're recognizing that they have an opportunity to speak up, to advocate for themselves, and to make change. And it's not
mm-hmm.
just like sitting in the issue and just like, wallowing in that, but it's like, no, actually, I want to do something about it and having that empowerment to do so. I think
Yeah.
that's great. And hopefully that will continue to bring, a positive thing going forward. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I was like, it's hard being a millennial and we get picked on, but like and then that shift, right? During COVID, you remember how everything was for the employee. Like the employees had like that power of
Mm.
going to work wherever they want to work, what kind of salary they want, benefits. So that negotiation was really leaning on, the power of the employee. And then it started shifting back to the employer. And now then they all of a sudden want you back in the office. And it's like, wait, that's not
Yeah,
what I
but
asked for.
but what I'm seeing is like employees are saying like up yours,
Hmm.
boss man. I was
Hmm.
talking to
Yeah.
a friend of mine at a company that shall not be named because my friend
Okay.
still works there. But that friend was telling me about how their boss, who's now the head of the group, who I also used to work with at the time, sent out this kind of like very passive aggressively corporate letter like just a reminder everyone's supposed to be in the office 3 days a week, just a
Hmm.
reminder. And it's like there's no, I feel like there's not that fear. Like I know like in 2005 like
Hmm.
you'd never think of just like typing your boss and saying, hey, I'm working from home today.
Right.
Thanks. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't even like
Exactly.
dare do that. And now people push back and it's like, you want what are you gonna do about it?
Hmm. Yeah, I can't make it in. I'll work from home today.
Yeah. I do miss like office culture too, though, like I
Hmm.
miss the friends, making friends in the office and just,
Hmm.
having that camaraderie and, socializing after work and socializing at lunch. Because I do think it's really, you can't build relationships in the same way. You know what I mean? Like we could
Right.
have like a weekly, Zoom meeting and we can get friendly over those meetings, but that's different than if we're like every day we're at the coffee machine at the exact same time and we're
Yeah.
just like chatting about like, oh, what'd you watch on TV last night? Or how'd your kid's
Right.
game go? How about you? What
Oh,
do you miss it? Do you
I do miss it. And it's interesting because when I started on my most recent work, it was mainly remote. Like we had one person, she was living in Boston, another is living in Texas. So everything was just remote. All your meetings are on Zoom or Teams rather. Um, and they started like implementing like coming in every so often they'll have some kind of like creative retreat. So we'll all like go to like a tennis club and have fun with each other. And then slowly it was like, hey, one day a week you'll be in the office. And it's a trek because I'm like, at least this week I was like stuck in traffic for nearly 2 hours. But when I got there and just seeing all, the people that you work with, if you build such a really good rapport with them, and just connect on a human level, you can have so much fun. I do not think being in the office is more productive though. I will argue that. I feel like being at home, you just get everything done. But the also in the same thing, like being in the office, like every so often you can really build those relationships and
mm-hmm.
learn from one another, kind of, peek over their shoulder if they want to show you something that they're working on that you may not be always exposed to because
Mm-hmm.
working from home you don't have that flexibility. So It's really good, especially when somebody's new on the team. I think it's super beneficial for them to have
Hmm.
that FaceTime with you, just to come over and ask for questions, and then you just like talk and relate and see how they got to this position, their journey. So that's a lot of fun. So I actually look forward to it. We just go once a week, which is fine.
Yeah, but still, yeah,
Mhm.
I do agree with you though, about it not being as productive as working from home. Because I just
Yeah.
remember, like I'd probably roll in at like 9:30, walk
Hmm.
and make some coffee, then just make my rounds to my work. Well, what's going on over
Yeah.
here? So then by the time it's like, oh, I guess it's 10:30, I should probably like sit down and try to get something done. And then it's like a
Yeah.
meeting, and then it's like, okay, lunch.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You end up like, yeah, these like little social moments. But I guess maybe that's also part of the productivity. It's just a different form.
this is
But like
true
in
because
terms,
again, you're
yeah,
still building
yeah.
those relationships and you're building
Hmm.
absolutely. So you've done everything. So you've worked in like unscripted
Hmm.
television. You've
Hmm.
worked on these huge, huge, huge blockbusters that have the
Hmm.
budget to fly 100 people down to Peru for two scenes. You've
Yeah.
so now you're working in sports broadcasting.
Yeah.
Um, how from in terms of just from in the nature
Mhm.
of what you do, is there
Mhm.
much of a difference between those various genres and formats?
Oh, yes, certainly. Like this was a completely new realm for me because the layout of the budget, obviously there's personnel, you got the talent and you got the crew, but the different like mechanics of getting the production done um was just very different for me. Because and with Tennis Channel, what they have, which is a lot of fun, they have an international space. They also have original programming, which is kind of like features where they get to do little bios, short bios on
Mhm.
different tennis players. And then there's the tournaments and like the big slams, like for, Australian Open, US Open, and so forth. And then now, because pickleball has become so popular, it's been like a fast growing
Just
sport,
came out of
they
nowhere like
have
AI.
that.
It's like all of
I
a sudden
know.
everyone's talking about pickleball, and I'm like, what the hell is pickleball?
Exactly. So now that's the new aspect added to their whole, development. So it's a completely different thing for me because there's the studio, there's the remote, and then what's needed. So they will have like a production truck that would have all the cameras, and then transmission and satellite in terms of like needing the internet so that to get from where they are remotely to air to in our um, office in Santa Monica. So
Mhm.
all those connectivity things are
Oh,
just
that is
very
a nice
different.
trek for you.
And I'm just like learning about, which vendors we need so that we can, get the type of internet speed or something so that everything is clear and works. Some venues have the specs that we need, and that's a whole other realm that I don't know too much of, but I get to be a little bit exposed to. And then there's some venues that we need. So that's also additional costs. And then, especially in the pickleball side of things that I'm more involved in, you're working with MLP, which is the Major League of Pickleball, and then PPA. So that's another league, and having that collaboration, and working in that, finance aspect was pretty cool. So yeah, it's very different, but it's a lot of fun. So I love it.
Do you miss movies at all, or do you miss movies at all?
Sometimes I think
Yeah.
about it. Like I'll see Paramount or something. And yeah, I do. I think maybe like at some point I did imagine at Paramount Pictures where I thought, okay, after this, being a coordinator here, eventually like the usual like path would be you leave the studio and you'll be a freelancer and you'll be like a production, finance clerk, payroll clerk, or first assistant accountant on the road, and you just pick up the next job like every 8 months or so. You'll work on a different film and um, just travel around the world. I thought about that, but right now it's like, no, I just want to stay. I want to stay in one place.
Is there an ultimate career goal? Like, is there an ultimate, like, whether it's like completely like line producing for films, or is there like
Hmm.
is there an ultimate goal that you have in mind in terms of your trajectory?
Right now, what really speaks to me would be like a docu-series format, or short film. Like I would love to um, interview people where I can develop like little stories of like their life, their faith, their journey, and how to encourage others in that space. So I would love to do like little documentary series or um yeah, like just those type of things. I really love that, like the research aspect and like what's the story here and finding the different connections between, like when you're interviewing a few people and, you're able to see that common thread and
Mm-hmm.
just expose people to a completely different realm. I would love that. I would love to do more of that. I do have a lot of fond memories about behind the music. So
Mm-hmm.
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, just yeah, I do think about it and I'm like, well, how do I pivot in that way? Which is kind of what I've a little bit involved in terms of like at the tennis channel where we do like these small shorts about the life of these tennis players and how do they get to the place that they're in and all the success and traveling around the world and all these tournaments. So that's also different kind of exposure to the creative side that I would love to do and just produce and like to see how these little segments and stuff and like just stories from different people and learn from them. And I just think that would be so cool and so encouraging. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems like there's a lot of work. I mean, maybe not inspirational
Mhm.
stories, but like
Mhm.
true crime is everything now. So,
Right.
like,
Yeah. It
like
is.
it got to the point where it's like every time I open up like a Netflix or a Max,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, I don't want to watch any more three-part series about this woman who murders her husband,
Yeah.
the woman who goes missing, the woman whose child
Right.
goes missing.
Mhm. Right? There was like that one, like the Tinder guy
Oh, the
where
Tinder
he
killer,
swindler or something like
Tinder
that.
Tinder swindler. Yes.
There we go. And so it's like I that and then there was another where she was messing around with all these people in New York and she pretended like she was a socialite. I can't remember, her name is
Oh,
escaping me right now. There we go.
Anna
Her.
Delvey.
And like I was just like you felt like all these different series were popping up with like a similar thread or similar feel and you just like binge watching all of them. Oh my gosh. So that's kind of like, yeah, true crime. Like you get this murder, and that one. Yeah. Yeah.
So what are you watching now? Because I feel
Hmm.
I feel almost since COVID, like all I do is binge TV, even now
Hmm.
out of COVID. And there's a part of me that feels like I've finished television because like I look
Yeah.
up and it's like I've seen that, seen that, seen that.
uh a little bit of everything. Like pretty recently I did binge watch Suits and I thought like maybe I could become a lawyer,
I
but
know
that was really
Jose.
fun. That was a really
Speaking of
fun
lawyer,
show.
Jose just typed into the chat. He says, "I still haven't." He's been trying to get me to watch Boston Legal for like
Oh,
20 years,
really?
and I'm like, I finished it. He just goes, "You still haven't watched Boston Legal."
That would be cool.
I'm sorry. Continue what you were saying.
Um, yeah, Suits, I was watching that. I love the show. And I'm kind of glad that they're gonna bring it back in some kind of way. And recently watching a movie like Roadhouse, which was with Jake Gyllenhaal. And that was
Mm-hmm.
fun. That was a fun action film. And so yeah, it's a little bit of everything, yeah,
How
here
was
and
it
there.
compared to the original?
Oh, I don't think I've seen the original.
You never
There's
saw the
original?
original? Yeah, it's Patrick
No.
Swayze. It's from
Oh
the
my
80s.
gosh. I had no clue. Okay, now
Yes.
I have to watch that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love Patrick Swayze. Oh,
Exactly. And I remember when they announced that they were redoing it, like the
yeah.
internet was like in an uproar, like, how dare you?
Really?
There's only one Patrick Swayze.
Yeah. Oh,
Have you
that was
watched, have you seen do you have Apple TV Plus?
not at the moment. No.
Oh my God, there's a new show on it. And it's called Palm Royale. It's like
Uh-huh.
my new favorite thing on in the world. It's this funny
Yeah.
comedy about this stars Kristen Wiig, and basically
Hmm.
she's a social climber trying to move into the center of Palm Beach society. And the cast
Oh.
is amazing. It's like her,
Hmm.
Allison Janney, Carol
Hmm.
Burnett. Ricky Martin,
Whoa,
Leslie
what
Pitt.
a cast.
It's an amazing. Oh, that's my new favorite show right now.
Oh,
But
dang.
but
That's really, have you seen Morning Show? I haven't, I've been wanting to.
oh, I like Morning Show. It's on
Yeah.
hiatus now. It's good.
Yeah.
I enjoy Morning Show. I like the pacing of it,
Hmm.
and it's interesting because when it first started, it was very because it came didn't it did it come out, was it still COVID when it came out, or was it
Hmm.
right after COVID? And
Yeah.
so it was like kind of timely because remember COVID, we were still like sort of like in the height of Me Too still. And
Yeah.
so the initial plot line, like they heavily borrowed from what was happening with like Nat Lauer at NBC. But the
Yeah.
story has progressed and it's got it's I like Morning Show. I like
Oh,
Morning Show a
cool.
lot. I love all those kind of like backstage shows, like where it's about
Hmm.
the industry, whether it's the production side or and it's like you see
Oh,
the
like in a funny like sitcom type of way, like 30 Rock, like they're
yes,
somewhat of
exactly.
behind the scenes and like you see like the talent is having an emotional breakdown and all these little
yeah,
antics they'll get into. Oh, that was a fun show.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
that was
good.
good. That also makes me think of did you ever see Unreal? It was
Unreal.
on Lifetime. It was on Lifetime. It ran for like
Hmm.
4 seasons, 3 or 4 seasons. And it was
Hmm.
like a backstage show about a bachelorette type of a program.
Really
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh my God, it was so good. My good friend Ryan, who like
Hmm.
grew up in producing in that world, he was like, oh,
Yeah.
him and his friends would be on the phone, like, oh my God, how do they know? Oh my God, this.
The exposure. I'll have to check it out.
You'll
There's other
have
shows that
to.
I really got into, like 90 Day Fiance. They have so many
Can we
spin-offs.
talk about that?
I
I'm so
got
mad.
crazy in it. And I got on it because my mom and she when she would visit, we would just binge watch. She's like, "Oh, you want to watch another episode?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And it's like there's so many different spin-offs.
Totally. I like and can we, like, if we talk about producing, I think that
Hmm.
whoever created that format is brilliant.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
I got into it like a year or so ago, just because of this one particular couple that I was like channel flipping, and it's like, who are these
Hmm.
crazy people? And then you get sucked into it, and then they
Hmm.
re-air it, but then they'll air it with new scenes, and then they'll
Yeah.
re-air it with other couples watching it, and then
Yes.
they'll and it's
Pillow
just like,
talk.
and so it's just like, yeah, and it's like, and then there'll be more than one happening, like a regular 90 day, but then the other day will also be on at the same time, and so then you like, what ended up happening for me is that I got lost in it because I didn't know which was which, and
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, I want to know, and then the way it's set up, you might have
Yeah.
couples you don't care about and you can just skip
Yeah.
them, or but then you have
Unfortunately.
your couple that you have those couples that you're like crazy, like, okay, I need to know what's happening. And so
Hmm.
when I started watching it, I think that there were like 2 or 3 different versions that were airing first
Hmm.
run at the same time, and so I ended up watching all of them just because I never knew which couple was on which so I
Try to
like
catch them
fell
all.
down. Yeah, like I like fell down this rabbit hole. But
Yeah.
I haven't, after the last one, the most recent one ended.
Mhm.
Um I haven't picked up, so like I'm not, I think Happily Ever
Hmm.
After is happening is right
Yes, there's
now.
like Happily
And
Ever After. Chantel, like
it's
she had her own spin-off
see,
too.
Chantel I didn't get into. So the folks I got into, I can't
Yeah.
believe you're
Or
talking
like
on live air
Angela.
about this show. So which one's Angela? So
Angela, she's blonde. You remember?
no, so I saw um, Crazy Debbie, who
Uh-huh.
moved to Morocco to be with Muhammad. Oh no,
Oh,
Osama. Remember her? She moved to
uh-huh.
Morocco to be with Osama. Osama, you're like a dream. She's like 70. He's like 21 and like missing teeth. It was just like so like,
Really?
who are these people? And then Gino and Jasmine.
Yes, yes. Oh my
They're
gosh, the
on the new
emotional
one
roller
now.
coaster. They
They're
are, yeah.
I like, so I'm not even watching the new one now because they're like I feel like they're just like scripted at this point. Like I feel like they're just like kind
Hmm.
of like keeping their story alive just so they can stay on
Hmm.
television. But they were nuts. And then did you see the trans woman and the guy from
Hmm.
Estonia or
Um,
wherever he was from?
Moldova.
Moldova, you
Yeah,
Moldova. And like
yeah,
just that whole story about how she basically
yes.
like traumatized the poor young guy.
Yeah, right, because he didn't know.
He
And
didn't
they
know.
they
And
were
like
talking for like 10 years or so. Like that they had to develop a friendship or dating for a
they
while.
were dating. She was over there.
Yeah.
Personally, I think she's just a sex tourist, but she was over
Oh,
there. She said like meeting some other guy she was dating, found out he had a girlfriend, and so then went
mhm.
out clubbing and met this kid. So she was
Yeah.
probably like 30 and he was like 19, and they started dating for like 2 years. And then
Right.
one day when they got into a fight, she goes, yeah, well, I was born a man. And that totally shook it. He was like 21. This is like his first girlfriend.
Oh.
And they've been together. Can you imagine? And on top of it, his name is actually Igor, but she thinks that that's a
Igor.
gross name, so she calls him Justin. It's
Oh,
just so messy.
I
Just the
missed
whole
that.
thing. I was
Right.
like totally fascinated with their story. But
Yeah, that's a shock to of a
yeah.
lifetime for him. But they're thriving as far as like the episodes I've seen lately.
So you talk
Yeah.
about, you say you know in terms of what you want to contribute to the
Hmm.
unisphere,
Hmm.
positive stories and things that can
Hmm.
kind of uplift and make you think. So I don't know that necessarily 90 Day Fiance necessarily
Hmm.
falls into that.
Hmm.
Into that. What would be like if you were like say talking about like a docu series or something like a
Hmm.
doc? What happening? What now in the world have you read? Are you seeing? Have you seen? Is a story that you
Hmm.
think, oh, I would love to be able to kind of dive into this and explore this?
Oh, like it's on a very serious note would be um like just the vulnerability that people are in when they're seeking help from like counseling, like so with a
Mm,
therapist, a pastor, or even I guess like their doctor. And those power dynamics are not often spoken about. And I would love to, whoever is comfortable sharing their story, of course, to talk to people and get their experience on film or short format or something in that way where they can talk about their experience and what they've learned and how they've worked through their grief and their own emotional experience of that to become in a place where they're a little bit more at peace because that's always a long journey, but
yeah,
those stories, because it's something that's very personal and close to my life too, where you really want to help people who might be in a vulnerable space and recognize if they are being exploited and really speak up and help for them, and to really listen to their stories to be better informed. Like that would be one of like my favorite exciting things would be to inform people about these types of things so that they can recognize in their own life and also bring more context to their own experiences if they've ever been hurt in that way.
yeah.
And also just recognizing it for their friends. So those type of stories, I'm looking to develop and just see who's comfortable sharing, and then yeah, put it out there in the world and hopefully be in a space where people can pick it up and just like yeah, like be more informed and yeah, I would love that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's so exciting. So
Mhm.
are you active? I don't feel like, are you
Mhm.
active on social media or no?
I'm trying to. So on Instagram, yes. So I've been trying to do. I usually use the stories function, but yeah, I kind of want to try like Reels because that's like their own TikTok. I do love TikTok. I'm a little obsessed with it. I need to like calm down.
How do you
It's
feel
just,
like
but it's fun.
them potentially like going out of
Like
business? Because
banning
then
it. Oh, it's an attack. It's an attack on us. I just want to scroll like, uh,
TikTok is
but
addictive though.
yeah,
Like I
it
I
is.
feel like 'cause I don't I'm not a big social media person. Like I rarely like I'll usually log
Hmm.
into Instagram just because there's certain
Hmm.
people and like certain friends who like that like as opposed to texting they DM through Instagram.
Hmm.
So I'll do that. But then every now and then I'll be
Yeah.
like, oh, I haven't been on TikTok in forever. Let me see what's going
Yeah.
on. Cut to like an hour and 10
Hmm.
minutes later.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God.
The sun has set.
Seriously. Do you
Yeah.
post on TikTok?
I used to. I was doing that a lot more like during COVID, like little skits and stuff. But I'm more like a observant. I love like the little
Yeah.
skits, the stories that people will share. And then it's like this how we're able to interact with each other, like with the Stitch feature. Because that's not
Mm-hmm.
something that's familiar like that, on Facebook or something or Instagram now, yes. But um that was just something new where you can kind of just answer someone's question right there. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it
Like
opens up
all of
such
a
a
sudden you're like
conversation.
duetting with Cher, and it's just
Yeah,
like
exactly. It really brought like I don't know, it's even like a lot of the celebrities and stuff like they'll kind of hop on a trend, for fun, and I think that's just
hmm
kind of what helped people a lot during COVID is just to have some semblance of fun and connectivity, and it might feel like connection and it may not truly be in some ways, but I think it does nourish a lot. And that's how people really may have gotten through the isolation, the lockdowns by having like these fun jokes and like, like little skits and sharing stories on TikTok. So I think there's a lot of cool things about it. And of course there's the political side of it all. That's, kind of a
Yeah.
downer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird. So I'm working right now on a documentary about social media, and we just
Really?
interviewed, I think, three people so far
Mhm.
for it. And I was talking to one of them who's she's an Instagram influencer. We were interviewing her
Mm.
and her story, and she talked about, and this is that kind of that like that generational divide because
Right.
she's a young millennial, but she
Mhm.
talks about how she got first social media like came around like that she started using when she was like 12, and so in her mind she's
Oh.
like I can't imagine what life would be like without social media. And she also
Oh.
talked about it from the form of it being like so addictive where it's like she sometimes like forgets like, oh my god, there is real life, and like almost like in her
Mhm.
mind, if it didn't get posted, it
Right.
didn't happen. And so and so I wonder because I do think you're right in terms of we were able to use social media to come together when we couldn't physically
Mhm.
during COVID. But I do wonder like how many people is that now like a permanent crutch, and
Right.
how many people like now just live online and don't
Mhm.
really interact with
Right.
the external world in their environment.
Yeah, because like there's something very unique about the human experience in person, right? Where you can have all these different conversations. You might get some pushback about your own opinion and then, like be more flexible. Like, well, actually, I appreciate that perspective. Like, he's just more in the moment. With social media, it's like it's more timed or I don't know, structured in a different way that you can kind of end up in an echo chamber in that way or find more like-minded people, which could be beneficial but also might like make it a little bit harder to find different friends outside,
Totally. Well,
and
because
dating
the
also.
algorithm kind of keeps you in your echo
Yeah,
chamber,
it
you know?
does. It does, yeah. Like that you hear about it with like dating and all these dating apps. People are like upset. Like it's just like these horror stories, and I'm like, so that one is there terrible, that one is terrible, like all these apps, and I'm like, it's interesting because before we used to meet people more organically,
hmm
outside and all like third spaces they would say, like we're kind of missing out on. So yeah, social media. Like I'll be interested to see how your product comes out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, listen, now it's time to say goodbye to all
Ah,
my LA friends. It's been so great catching up with you.
yes, this is so much fun.
So where can we find your blog? Where can we find you online, our listeners? So once you do start getting it
Yes.
cranking again.
So it'll be angelinafeliciano.com. Same on Instagram, Angelina Feliciano. And then also working on thehurdingsheep.com, which would be another thing coming up soon. So yeah, just
Okay.
check me out and yeah, it'll be good to
Awesome.
connect.
Well, we shall. Well, thank you
Yeah.
for joining us. And I can't wait to
Uh,
catch up with you again.
yes.
And thank you all out there in Radio Land for joining us. We'll talk to you next week on another episode of Showtime with Jordan Van Hazel and Friends right here on Hot 702.5 FM, Las Vegas.